learn how to network and how to do it in a way that seems very genuine and real and that you actually can grow to like. I think you also need to be aligned with your partner, right?
Sure.
You can't both say, you're going to be the stay-at-home and I'm going to be the career and we're going to somehow figure that out. No, you can both be the career, but then you need to know you need somebody else helping in the home. Collect the people who you see yourself in or who you want to be.
Welcome to the Early Insights podcast, an opportunity to understand exactly what it takes to build a career in the data, research, insight sector, and the many different ways to do so. I'm your host, Lewis Reeves, founder and CEO at Walr. And today we have an incredible guest. If you ask your favorite AI solution about the perfect corporate market research career, her name would appear. From rising to the top of the very largest research companies to powering the insights of the fastest growing tech and media companies, it's a huge privilege to welcome today's guest, Lydia Irving. Welcome, Lydia. How's it going?
Thank you. It's going well, Liz. Thank you so much.
Lydia, absolute privilege. I'm so excited to get into your career. As I mentioned there, you've done some huge things in the world of market research. But it didn't seem like you were set to go in that path back in your early days. And I see here that you've got a degree in microbiology. So take us back to that time and what you were thinking about and why microbiology?
Sure. So, going back to my high school days, I loved sciences, thought it was really fascinating, really thought that I wanted to be either a doctor of some kind of medical field. So that's what I focused on. Went to college. The microbiology program was like super interesting, and the teachers, the professors were really great. They were doing research all over the world and talking about all these great things, and that was really my passion and my path. With the idea of graduating from college and going to dental school. So that's what I'd kind of narrowed it down to was dental school. I felt like it was a manageable career, something that was interesting but focused, and I wouldn't be changing lives, which was kind of okay with what I wanted to do. I did that, and then when I'd finally graduated, I went to go work in a dentist's office and realized I hated it. Really,
Interesting.
that it was the opposite of what I wanted to do. And I'd already applied to schools. I'd taken the DAT, which is dental aptitude test. I'd done all of it and was ready to go. So I had a very difficult conversation with my mom and said, I'm going to take some time. I'm going to work for a year, figure things out, and kind of recalibrate in terms of what I want to do. And I took a job working at a bank. Just started out as like a temp position, which turned into a full-time position. And I got a couple of promotions while I was there and realized that taking 1 year off turned into 2 years, turned into 3 years. And then at that point decided, hey, this is interesting to me. This is something that I find fascinating, and I could see myself doing this, and I enjoy doing it. I'd never taken even a basic accounting class, so said, I need to do something different. So that's when I decided to go to business school.
Interesting. And I just want to step back one moment. The practical experience of the dental practice, what was it that you hated about it?
All of it. I hated, I hated the mouths. I just didn't like
I can concur. Yeah, I get it.
It was so weird, speaking to someone who couldn't speak back. And I'm sure we all have that experience when we go to the dentist, right? Your dentist is talking to you. You're just sitting there and you can't say anything. It seemed incredibly repetitive day in and day out. And it seemed very small. Like it seemed like this was going to just be the same Groundhog Day over and over again. And it was not as dynamic as what I was hoping for.
Interesting. And maybe that's the route to a great career in market research. You want those answers back.
Yes.
You were asking the questions, but not getting the answers.
Yeah.
So fantastic. So you decide that you want to go to business school. Really interested to tap into that. And I know MBAs are a much bigger practice in America than they are here in Europe, although gaining a lot more momentum. Was that more from the regards of having an education that would align with the career that you now wanted to take, or was it for the esteem of that MBA?
I think initially it was the having a career that was more aligned with what I wanted to do, or having a background that was more aligned with a career. I lived in Canada. I went to school in Canada, so I looked at the Canadian schools, which were great. And then while I was applying, I actually visited New York City and fell in love. and thought, hey, two birds, one stone. Why don't I apply to Columbia and NYU and, let's see what happens.
Those really easy schools to
Really
get
easy
into.
school.
Yeah, of course.
I ended up only applying to Columbia because it was so late in the process. I think I'd already it was like really last minute, and I got everything in and applied to Columbia. And the admissions office actually called me and said, why did you wait till the last minute? The class is almost full. And so I was waitlisted initially, and then did get a spot eventually for the next year. So I took it. So I huge move, big things. In retrospect, when I look back at my 25-year-old self, I can't believe that I did some of those things, but I'm so thankful that I did. And I think that's one of the big things, right, in your career is take chances, take risks, think, really weigh what's the worst that could happen. Like, what's the best that could happen and what's the worst that could happen. And I feel like most of the time, at least for myself, my regrets are the things that I didn't do as opposed to the things that I did do.
Yeah.
So, and I feel like, I have a teenage daughter who's now she's going to college in the fall, and I try to instill that in her, which is, take the big step, take the leap, do the thing that seems insane, because even if it doesn't work out, what's the worst that happens? You take a step back and you have to find another path again.
Absolutely. And am I right in thinking that since then you've not left New York?
No.
Wow.
Yeah. So it was supposed to be school for 2 years, maybe stay for a year and get some work experience, then back to Toronto. And instead I've been, this is going to be 25 years. Yeah.
Wow. Mm-hmm. And so you get your MBA. What does the landscape look like for you? What different career choices are coming your way?
Sure. So I interned with one of the big management consulting firms, which I loved. And that's what I really thought I would do. Yeah. And then in 2002, which was one of the worst job markets in history, my entire graduating class it was unheard of, but the vast majority of us graduated without jobs, which was really...
Particularly from Columbia, yes.
Particularly from Columbia, really unheard of. So got a huge amount of debt from school, no job. I needed to work to stay in the country, so that was the other part of it. So there's all these kind of competing forces and issues, and I started looking at everything, right? I was like, I just need to work. So I actually, I know it's not on my resume, but I actually had 3 jobs initially. I was teaching GMAT classes for Kaplan, so one of the study companies doing that. I was working for a professor, helping him put packets together for the classes he was teaching. And I was also helping mature students who were in the executive MBA program, essentially doing their homework. So I had 3 jobs just to, kind of pay the rent and keep things going while I looked for a full-time role. And it took about 4 months for me to find a job, and I went to a startup, which was a true 2 founders. They had just hired their first employee, and I was the second employee.
And that was in New York as well?
That was in New York City.
Yeah. And that was into the world of market research?
That was into the world of market research. That was a company called Buzzmetrics, and they were doing social listening research. So 2002. Wow. Super early. Nobody even knew what it was. We were using Usenet groups as our source of data. It was really new. We had an engine that could search things, and we could, do analytics on it and all these great things. But it was really the 4 of us. And as when I came in today and saw your beautiful space, and you said it was much nicer than previous ones. I mean, some of the places we worked was just like, wow! I can't believe I graduated from Columbia. I'm working in the dodgiest part of town in an office that's barely standing. We're wearing gloves inside because it's so cold, but we're getting it done. Right?
Yeah.
It's like we are doing something that's new and cool.
Exciting indeed. And so from Buzzmetrics, you go on to start up to Behemoth with Nielsen.
Nielsen, yeah.
Talk about that journey.
Sure. So after a couple of years at Buzzmetrics, we did a couple of small acquisitions.
Yeah.
So a company out of Cincinnati called IntelliSeek, and a company out of Israel called Trendum. So the 3 of us came together. And then Nielsen took a minority share in us, and then a majority share, and acquired us fully. And that was probably 2007-ish, I want to say, so about 5 years, which was great. I mean, it was great to go, into a building that had a reception downstairs, and that, people had real desks, and everything felt more grown up and real. And I should say that when I took the job at Buzzmetrics, I remember and I use notebooks every day, write everything down. But I remember my second week or so writing down a 6-month period out, a 6-month date, start looking for a real job, right? Because it was like, this was not the dream. This was not the go to Columbia, do this dream. This was the do this and just make it work. But I also try to make the best of everything, right? It's like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it well. I'm going to really try hard and do things. I was incredibly fortunate that the two founders were two amazing guys. I'm still, one of them I'm still very close to, the other one I'm in touch with, but we are less in the same geographical area at this point. I learned so much from them. And it wasn't an option to just do your job. It was, you do everything. If we have a client coming in, you're making coffee and getting them settled. If we have a big presentation, we're all staying up all night to put it together. If we need to learn something new, we do it together. Like, this was very much the founder mentality, right? And as the second employee, you have to be on board. So really pushed. And then going to Nielsen, we were much bigger, more defined roles. And I had really, by accident, because of my school background, had fallen into the healthcare practice at that point. So I was running that team and doing that, and did that for a few years and really enjoyed it.
Yeah. So it sounds like Buzzmetrics was a real sort of extension of your MBA, really getting to understand every component of running business. That sounds like a great journey. Then you go to a much bigger business. Talk to me about some of those differences, the pros and cons, be it from a cultural perspective, from an opportunity perspective.
Sure. So I think, with most acquisitions, right, there are the pros and cons, very much so. So I'd say the pro was the big company, the resources, the supply closet if you needed anything, all of those things, a travel company that booked our travel, and real conference rooms. And so the whole corporate ethos, right, which I like. I like working for a big company, and this was still, going to the office 5 days a week and everything was there. I think the con was that we were used to just getting it done. So whatever it takes, any means, just get it done. Just figure it out and get it done. And all of a sudden it was like, oh, no, you can't do that. Like, you have to be a little more process oriented and like keep in mind some of the structure of the company and the things we're supposed to do. It wasn't terrible. Like, to be clear, it was overall a very, very positive experience, and really great. It was just different. It was kind of getting to do things in a different way. I think it was also, one of the great things was, we were really recognized within Nielsen as being a high performing team. So that gave us opportunity. So by that point, I was pregnant with my daughter when we were first acquired, and then subsequently had a second child, and was looking for a role that was a little more stable, less travel, a little more, hey, I come in at a set time and leave at a reasonable time each day, as opposed to just doing
every single hour. Yes, work whenever indeed. Needed. And one would guess, with such a practice of excellence and probably more experience in social media listening than anyone else had in the world, let alone within Nielsen, that you got exposed. A lot of people wanted to take you to their clients, and you would see a lot more of a roster of clients.
Absolutely. Yeah. So lots of exposure to other teams and other groups. As I said, I'd started in healthcare, and by the time I left there, we had a healthcare practice, a tech practice, an automotive practice, an agency practice, a CPG practice, and Nielsen had obviously the entire media side of the business. So it's just all this. It was almost, so one of the reasons I wanted to be a management consultant was for that opportunity to see and learn so many different things, and I kind of got it unintentionally through startup to big media company.
And Lydia, what becomes a clear trend in your career is, wherever you land, you rise to the very top very quickly. So you take the decision a few years later down the line to move from Nielsen to what was Ipsos OTX at the time, or maybe that was still OTX at the time. Talk to me about that decision, because clearly you were flying pretty high at Nielsen.
Sure. So I'd been at Nielsen for about, I think it was close to 10 years at that point, or between Buzzmetrics and Nielsen, about 10 years. And so, funny story, it was actually one of my very good friends who was interviewing for the role at Ipsos. And she and I were talking about it all the time, and I thought it sounded great. And she wasn't sure if it was the right move for her. And she made it kind of all the way to the end, and they were very excited. And at the end, she kind of said, I don't think this is the right job for me, but I think I have someone who it might be the right job for. And I think for me, I was just looking for something different, right?
Yeah.
After almost 10 years and it was my only real job, right?
Yeah.
It was like, this was where I'd built my career and I'd seen so many people come and go and different things happening. They were also a French company, and the idea of working for a company with a headquarters in Paris was very appealing, I'm not gonna lie. And my boss, when I went to go work for it, was incredibly charismatic and charming. And I was like, oh, this seems like such a great idea. And so I did that. So I took a leap with the thought of, if it doesn't work out, I have really good relationships at Nielsen. I've done a really good job. I'm doing everything the right way, and I'll figure it out. Like I'll make it. I want to do this next step, and fingers crossed it works. And if not, I'll figure it out.
Yeah. And so clearly a passion for European headquarters flowed through.
Yep.
And it feels like you really found yourself in your next move at GfK. So talk to us about getting into GfK, and then seems like an incredibly fascinating period that you've been at GfK through incredible private equity ownership, some of the biggest private equity firms in the world, to recent sales, but also some of the work you've done for some of the biggest companies in the world. So maybe let's start with those different ownership experiences.
Sure.
And how they were able to fast track your career even further.
Sure. Yeah. So I did. I went to GfK, and I went there as a global account director. So I was managing a huge tech client globally. I loved it. Loved that job. It was exactly what I was looking for without knowing that was what I was looking for. It was really dynamic and new and interesting and totally outside of my comfort zone, and really pushed me to try and do things. Again, I was very fortunate that I had a boss who was German, based in Germany, who was so inspiring and so smart and so interesting, and pushed me to do things and to learn things and all of those things. So that was great. And then, yes, KKR came in, and they brought with them, it's a few things, right? They bring an outsider view, so an outsider perspective to kind of come in, and GfK has this long history and this German heritage and everything else, which is fabulous. But sometimes it's good to get an outside perspective, which they brought. They brought all these resources. They brought, kind of a brand new management structure and realignment, and a different way of looking at things. And I was fortunate. So they came in about 4 years, I think, after I'd started at GfK. And I'd been in the global account director role. And again, I was starting to think about different things and what could I do. And I was incredibly fortunate that they did this really intense evaluation of each person, right? Each of their high performance, this evaluation. And they picked a whole slew of people to be put into kind of new leadership roles. And I was one of those people, and given a completely different remit around media. And kind of brought together this team. And I still say, and this is where I met Ben also, right? Your partner. And I don't know that I'll ever work with a management team that was as good as that one. It was such a great team of people. Everybody was so smart and so interesting, but also really fun. Like, it was a good group. So we worked really hard, and then we had a good time after. And most of us were pulled from our every day-to-day life. We were all put together in Nuremberg for the most part, or Berlin, and spent these weeks together. And so we had to get along, right? We had to figure it out together, and we really did. And KKR had really high expectations of us.
Sure.
So it was, it was a little bit trial by fire. You had to prove yourself quickly. You had to be up for the challenge, and not everybody was, right? Things changed, and things, people came and left and moved around quickly. But it was like an intensive boot camp on how to do things.
Fascinating. No, and it seems like without the impetus, perhaps there of private equity, and particularly KKR, that those environments for those leaders to really succeed and thrive perhaps wouldn't have been created if it had just stayed in its traditional ownership structure.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yes, yeah.
Interesting. And Lydia, I'm really keen to touch on some of the clients that you've worked on. And now we mentioned large tech clients. Now, when I think about those fast growing tech companies that we're all aware of, they are agile, they are dynamic, they're incredibly fast moving. When I think about market research, it's generally not those three words that come to mind. So I would love to understand the dynamics of looking after those relationships, powering data that drives those businesses forwards, where you've got two industries that perhaps are not always perfectly aligned. I think market research is getting there, and people like yourself will help move us forward, but historically haven't necessarily been right next to each other.
Sure. It's funny. I don't think I've ever thought about it like that, but you're right. We are completely different personalities, and it should have been this clash, right?
Sure.
So yes, I work with all of these big tech companies, and I will say they are the best clients I've ever had. They are so good because they think quickly, they make decisions quickly, they are super, super smart. They know how to both kind of use what the knowledge they have, but then also take from other people what they need. Like, they really understand that. So fabulous to work with. It is always the golden triangle, right? Because they want speed, they want accuracy, and they want good pricing, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure you are aware of that. So that's, I think, where our triangles are a little bit different. And GFK very much, right? We pride ourselves on the accuracy and integrity of our data, but it means that we're sometimes a little bit slower. And so we've had to change that mindset a little bit and say, okay, it may not be perfect, but it's going to be fast, and it's going to get you that quick readout to the highest standard possible within a reasonable time frame, and those types of things. But it is, it's great to work with them. And I think, and maybe that's why I love my job so much, is because I do have on the one hand, the stability of the market research world, which isn't kind of the overly intensive, fast pace and things, but my clients do, so I get both sides of it in a very good way.
And do you think some of the ways that they work have rubbed off on you guys? You say you've introduced some faster practices that perhaps perfect is not quite achieved, but 99% within a much faster time frame, which is the true story of those agile tech businesses.
Oh, absolutely. And it's funny, when I look at my team, I see them as a reflection of their clients.
Sure.
So each person on my team has one or two big clients, and I see the way they talk, the way they put presentations together, the way they write. It's like it's a reflection of what they're seeing from their clients, as it should be, right?
Indeed.
It should very much be that. But it is, and I institute rules on my team or guidelines on my team that I've seen from other companies. So whether it's, hey, if you get an email, you respond to it within an hour, even if it's just, got this, it's going to take me a while, and then at the end of the day, get back and say, okay, it's going to take me a few days, but it's like that very transparent and constant communication, right? So it's like, it doesn't just disappear into a black hole. It's thinking about the company ethos of who we're working with. So what is their mission? What is their, how do they talk about themselves? How do we talk about them? And how do we bring that in? And it's knowing that you are part of something bigger, right? So these companies that we work with are global brands that everybody knows and has heard of. So as GFK may not be that, but how do you think of yourself as being part of something that's really big and really worldwide and well known?
And I'm sure the impact they have makes bringing people into your team and getting them inspired to work on it much easier.
Yes.
when they're doing big things and changing the world, quite
Yes.
literally.
Yeah.
So interesting. Lydia, keen to change gears a bit. You've mentioned throughout this about your two wonderful children. Mm-hmm. I'm fascinated to understand a little bit more about how you've had an incredibly successful career that no doubt has been very intense on your time. We've spoken about a lot of European trips throughout that. Talk to me about some of the ways that you've learned to balance that home life with that work life and ensure, knowing you a little bit, you're an incredible mother at the same time. So we're asking the $1 million question, how do you do it all?
Yeah. So you can't, right? You definitely
Yes.
can't do it all. So I think that's one of the big things, right? Is that each person needs to figure out for themselves what is the balance, right? And it should be individual, and it should be something you're comfortable with. And I don't think you need to share that with anyone. And it's probably going to be different for every single person, right? But you, at some point, need to sit down and figure out. And I've said this to so many people on my team. I've had dozens of young people on my team over the years who've gone through the same life stages, and it's like, how do I do this? And I'm like, you need to write it down and figure it out. And it's going to change over time. And you may think one thing and then that changes. I think you also need to be aligned with your partner, right?
Sure.
You can't both say, you're going to be the stay-at-home and I'm going to be the career and we're going to somehow figure that out. No, you can both be the career, but then you need to know you need somebody else helping in the home, right? There's different things. So I think it's that. Figure out what you're both comfortable with, institute it, and then know that there's going to be amazing days where everything feels like I am queen of the world, right?
Yeah.
I'm doing it all and this is the life and can everything. And then there's going to be days where it just comes crashing down, and that's got to be fine too, right? It's going to be somebody gets pink eye. It's always pink eye.
Yeah.
Somebody always gets pink eye, and then you have to stay home, or the school is closed for some unknown reason. There's a dusting of snow, but of course we can't do anything about it. And you just have to have a contingency plan. Everybody on my team knows that I have a family and that sometimes things will change, and I will do the best that I can, but it's not always going to be perfect. But that's also what I expect from my team, right? Like, do the best you can. I understand that. And I really mean that, right? The best that you can do, not phone it in and say it's the best I can do, because that's just not the case. But make it work. And my kids, they're older now, so they understand this more. But there's been times where it's, Mommy, why do you have to leave again? Why do you have to go on another trip? And I explain it to them very clearly, like, this is what I do. Like, this is how we have this life that we have.
Yeah.
Like, when we go on vacation or when we get nice things or when we do things, it's all because every day I go to work and put in the effort and do my best to make all this happen. And I want you to feel that way too, right? I want this to be, so I really try not to feel guilty about it, because I don't think that that's a healthy thing, quite frankly. Like, unless you have some, fabulous lifestyle where you can do all the things you want to do without putting in the effort. I actually feel very proud of the effort I put in.
Yeah, no, indeed. And it sounds like really at the core of that is communication with at work, with your partner, with your children, and along the way, then everyone can understand what's going on and the dynamics can shift where they need to.
Yeah. You may not like it all the time, but we're talking about it.
Yeah,
this
indeed.
is what it is.
Indeed. And some of those nice tricks, I will touch on there. I have a young daughter, and she's discovered Sephora. We don't have many Sephoras in the UK. So when I travel to America, there is the loss of daddy out the house, but there's the upside that there might be a trip to Sephora on the card.
Always.
So you've got to win those small perks where you can.
Yeah.
Brilliant, Lydia. Super, super fascinating to understand more about your career. Keen to touch on some quick fire questions.
Oh, sure.
Looking back to your younger self, and maybe we can think about you, but also think about someone joining the industry today. What bit of advice would you have given yourself, or would you give to someone new setting themselves up in a career in this wonderful, complex world of research and data and insights?
Sure. Say yes to things. Say yes to things, and then go and do it. And also learn how to network. So I don't think we talk about that enough. And there is a skill to it that can be learned. I am an extroverted introvert, and so I know, it's not, my husband is an extroverted extrovert.
Yeah.
So I know you've met him. You can put him in a room anywhere. He meets everyone. Everyone knows him. It's great. It takes work for me to do that.
Yeah.
But I have to do it because it's really, really important in your career. Learn how to network and how to do it in a way that seems very genuine and real, and that you actually can grow to like.
Yeah, no, indeed. It's amazing how much of a common theme that's been in talking to people on this podcast. Just need to get out there, get talking to people and see what's going on in the world. I'm interested to get your perspective. You've clearly been at the cutting edge of market research for a large period of time now. How, with the modern technologies that are coming into this world, do you see that role of the researcher evolving in the future? Are there any particular skill sets that you think are going to be critical to that success?
That's a great one. And I feel like we're at such an inflection point right now, right? So it's the whole balance of manual versus AI. And I've been on a bit of a roadshow recently, meeting with all our clients. It's the beginning of the year and doing all these things. I was at CES a few weeks ago, and it's impossible to have a conversation without AI coming up. but everybody is, even the biggest tech companies, right, are still trying to define what it is, what it means, how to talk about it, how to really articulate the benefits to everybody, right, and what you should be doing, and how to think about it as being a very good and helpful thing in your life. So I think I would say, just try it, right? Don't be afraid of new things. Some of them will stick, some of them will not. I like to think that we'll come out with things that are for the good of everyone, right? And come to very like healthy, good things, as opposed to using it for nefarious reasons.
Yeah.
But that's the hope. But I think, again, just really try things, use them, see what works, be open about it.
Yeah. It's going to be an exciting new world. Lydia, my next question is about a career hack. And I'm going to bias this a little bit because I know a little bit about you. And I know you speak at some of the largest conferences you just mentioned there in front of very large rooms of people. And I know, a little bit like me, you are an introverted extrovert. And so although you deliver incredibly well, it maybe doesn't always come that easily to you. Are there any tips and tricks, maybe not so much about talking from rooms full of thousands of people, but if you're an early staged researcher and you're standing up for your first presentation, maybe in front of a room of 4 or 5 clients, all the way through to rooms that size, what does work for you that helps you in those environments?
So that is, public speaking is my nemesis, right? That is.
You're incredible at it, I must say, so you hide it well.
That is the thing. And I've had career coaches over different points in my career. And that's the thing I always bring up, is the public speaking. And like I mentioned earlier with the networking, just you have to do it, right? You have to exercise that muscle and figure out how to do it. And you can start small. Conversations like these, someone said to me a long time ago, try speaking on a panel, right? It's so much less intimidating and it's easier. And if you are going to give a presentation, do it 100 times at home and just make sure you know it, so that if you have, and it happens to me, right? My mind goes blank and I freeze and don't know what to do. But if it's so embedded in my mind, I can just talk and get through that point and make it work. Water is always helpful. I found something I always need to have, psyching myself up a little bit beforehand, and just, you can do this. Sounds so crazy, but it's like, you can do this, you've got this. And then someone, again, a career coach, said to me a while ago, think about times when you've done this and it's gone really, really well. And almost like, after that happens, embed yourself in that feeling and really kind of do something. And it can be, and she said, maybe it's like touch a ring, or like something that you're wearing, something lucky that's like, it's so ridiculous, but that's your lucky charm that makes this work. And then when you do it again, get back in that headspace, think about it and do it. And I don't know how, but that
does work. No, fantastic advice.
So I don't know if it's a good, I'm still working on this. I have not figured it out. But it does, when it feels good, it's really good.
Well, there's some brilliant tips there for the audience. And lastly, you speak a lot about some of the great mentors you've had, from the founders of Buzzmetrics to a number of brilliant bosses you've had along the way. I'm keen, whether it's in your professional life or your personal life, what's one piece of advice that has stuck with you and really proven well for you?
Sure. I think it is to surround yourself with people who really inspire you, who you really enjoy spending time with. And I think that comes back to everything, right? Like, whether it is a boss that I've had years ago, or clients who I've met along the way, or people who you meet, it's like, collect those people, right? Like, I think there's no bigger reflection than the people who are around you, who you associate with. And if they're people you really admire, whether it is for their career path, or just the type of person they are, or things that they've done, or the life that they've led, if that's what you see every day and that's what you interact with, I think it makes you a better person. So I think it really is like, collect the people who you see yourself in, or who you want to be.
Fantastic. Lydia, it's been truly fascinating. You heard it here first, guys. Lean in, say yes, work that network. Even if it comes slightly more difficult to you, it really is worthwhile. And just a truly brilliant story to understand the career that you've had. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.